You go to someone's house one day and you find a stairway like this? You better go home before it's too late. It's called a witch's stairway. If a woman in the family is a witch, she can't climb this stairway. Of course, there are exceptions to this kind of stairway, just to save space. This is what you are likely to answer the owners of the house if you ask why they have such a stairway. But only if you notice that such a stairway will lead to the basement, then it is better not to ask. In 1997, a 17-year-old boy went missing in Algiers. He was only missed for about a week. Not long. There was a war going on in those parts at the time, and so people disappeared there like pigeons chirping, often. But they weren't wrong, and still they found him. Only in 2024, he was sitting in a cellar in a neighboring garden for 27 years, and was released not as a 17-year-old boy, but as a 45-year-old man. But this is all, children's fairy tales. Rather important is what happened to him during all these 27 years while he was sitting in the basement. According to him, the grandfather who locked him there was a sorcerer, and every 2 months he drained a liter of. He explained why he couldn't walk on his own when they took him out of the cellar. According to the story, his grandfather had locked him there in 97 and had been conducting his witchcraft rituals all that time. And yes, in principle, the confirmation of this was found. But the only thing is that the shamanic gear was not in the house, but in the basement, where they found this guy. Which begs the small question, did they release the right man? And who else was holding who captive? Just so you don't have to think about it, here's a hint. This is what the staircase that led to this basement. Is it true what happened in Salem in the 1692 year? Who are the people who call themselves witches to this day? And do their methods work? What is the difference between your tarot card friend and a witch? Which do you think is harder? Your girlfriend or the Bible? If the former, you're lucky, she'll stay alive, which you wouldn't be if you were in the Middle Ages. Because they weighed girls and Bibles. Anyone who was lighter than the Bible was automatically considered a witch. But there's just one little thing. Bibles at that time weighed about 50 kilos. So they built a device like this. They put the Bible on one side and the woman on the other. If she was lighter, the fire. You'd be surprised, but they had an even more ingenious logical conclusion. They thought that the broom on which the witch flew simply could not lift more than 50 kilograms. So all skinny girls under 50 pounds were under suspicion, because the broom could lift them. Even before all the astrology predictions, tarot cards, voodoo dolls, and other rituals, there were witches, or rather, there were those who believed in them since the writing of the Bible. But the real recognition they received about 500 years ago. Well, meet the first recognized witch in Salem. Her name was Tituba. She and 20 other witches like her were executed on charges of conspiring with the devil. Since the year 1585, people have been noticing a strange disease that occurs mostly in women. And here's where it gets interesting and ambiguous, is what the symptoms were in these women. As you can see, it all starts with a woman named Tituba. She was a slave to a local shepherd in Salem. This shepherd had 2 other daughters, and one day, these 2 daughters of the shepherd fell ill with a strange disease. They hid from people, behind furniture, complained of visions, and constantly felt as if someone was stabbing them with needles. After looking at all these symptoms, the inflamed psyche of the local doctors decided that these visions are sent to them by the devil himself. And of course, the shepherd himself, whose daughters were sick, easily accepted this theory as true. Suddenly, similar symptoms began to appear in Tituba herself, and the other women as well. Just so you understand, at the time, even a joke about collusion with Satan was a serious threat to society, and so it was decided to hold a huge trial of those involved. From then on, a real manhunt began. In Salem, any woman who was suspected of such a thing, she had made dramatic strides or had become extremely beautiful and maybe thinner than the rest, was brought in for questioning. After all, a woman is not a man, so she can achieve something on her own, except through dark magic. So many, even the innocent, left the city, and the guilty made a cunning plan. But now think about how a woman could actually be proven to be a witch. Unless there were obvious signs, they didn't fly broomsticks and throw fireballs. The guards checked every woman's body for witch marks. They made them read the Bible and drink holy water. But still, nothing could guarantee a woman was a witch, except the woman herself. So the witch hunters got witches to confess by hanging and torturing hundreds of women. There was even a method of placing one cobblestone on her chest, gradually adding one after another until she recognized herself as possessed. I mean, by law, there has to be proof. So, I think you realize that not all of those who confessed were actually guilty. Some of them just confirmed it because they had no other choice. But you know, there was actually a device that could tell if a woman was a witch. It's just genius. They'd put a woman underwater on this device and wait to see if the water would take her. If she floated, the water didn't accept her. So the woman was a witch, and she was executed. If she didn't float, the water accepted her, so she wasn't a witch. But there's one little nuance. The woman has already drowned. It didn't matter. Nobody cared about the woman. It was just important to find out if she was a witch. But why was Tituba the first witch? The thing is, she decided it herself. She was smarter, and she was the first to admit that she was a witch. But she added something else. She said she'd gotten a ledger in which she'd seen a list of the other 20 witches in Salem, and she would only tell about it if she was left alive. In doing so, she secured her life. After all, it is much more profitable for the government to find out where the other 20 witches are hiding than to burn one. So, Tituba became the first officially recognized witch, and she saved her life at the cost of 20 other lives. Well, wait, we still don't know if witches exist or not, but the thing is, it doesn't matter, because Tituba and all the other women had no idea what was happening to them. Nowadays, when you have problems with your head, you can go to a psychiatrist, and he will diagnose you. Schizophrenia, for example. And then there's just a shepherd who's afraid to see the devil from everywhere. So he comes and says, "Ma'am, you must have a devil in your head. So, you are a witch." And from that moment, the girl herself will believe that she is a witch, because there are no other options. So, whether Tituba was really a witch, no one knows, and I think not even she. But she was the first to play by the rules, and beat her opponent, which, unfortunately, the other women failed to do. In the history of witch persecution, about 50,000 women died. What do we have now, in the year 2024? Hundreds of years have passed since then, but it is quite possible that there are still some heirs of the witch family. And ancient mythology says that witches can reincarnate and live on in other bodies. I'd argue with that fact, but you can't say that about heirs. Back in the 17th century, when there were witch fires, one of them was Margaret Crevestick. Naturally, many years passed, and no one even remembered about her, until one of the police officers in our time has not decided to investigate his family tree. He discovered that his wife was a direct relative of Margaret Crevestick herself. And there are usually two ways. These guys were more or less adequate, and just decided to rehabilitate her case in court, albeit posthumously. But someone takes having a witch lineage as an honor, or even a call to action. This guy interviewed several witches, and every one of them seriously claimed to be a witch. I mean, there's a huge number of people among us right now who seriously believe they're witches. Yeah, sure. I can't fly on a broomstick, but I can make a love potion. And, believe me, that's the least of it. But then we're nowhere, and the witches are still among us. Not really. It's actually quite simple. There's a simple rule at work here. If a person believes they're a witch, they're a witch. Of course, because of one belief, you will not have fire from your hands, and you will not fly on a broomstick. But as you know, modern witches don't need that to be able to make money. And that's where my favorite subject comes in. Tarot cards. Here we go. It's the 21st century. The population of this country has spent $2 billion on fortune tellers. What's going on, women? Go to a shelter, feed a homeless person, or I don't know, buy a dog a sausage. The two of them and the homeless guy will carry you around. I just don't know why. Let's be serious. To set the record straight, let's just search the internet for what all these tarot cards and astrological predictions are based on. Legend has it that what tarot cards are based on is the most important question. The layout directs experts to a unified energy field. What is this field? Where is it? I don't feel it. Know what I mean? What's holding it up like a card falling out by accident? Is it some kind of dark matter or something? How the tarot knows everything, it's unexplainable. That's why I started the topic about tarot. The thing is that in fact, the whole story with cards and with astrological predictions is based on the same energy on which allegedly and kept witchcraft. Correct me, I don't understand. And that's why we believe that tarot cards and astrological predictions are working. But nobody believes in a witch flying around town on a broomstick. I don't know, maybe those who do believe in it do. And in a story like this, sorry, but still, it's weird. The interesting thing is that it's not always the astrologers themselves who are trying to deceive the client. They have deceived but themselves, and a long time ago. The day they believed that if they had any witches in their bloodline, they were witches too. I am not lying. I personally once communicated with a woman, and during the dialogue accidentally came up information about the fact that she does card readings. And I'm telling the truth, she really believes that she is gifted, and she has some kind of gift of a seer. I'm telling you seriously, she had such confidence in her eyes that it scared me. So there's no right or wrong. It's like hypnosis. It works and does not work at the same time. If a person subconsciously believes or allows at least the possibility that hypnosis works, he will be hypnotized. But if he is 100% sure that it is nonsense, then his hypnosis will not work. There is one difference though. Hypnosis can be useful. If you love my content, then like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new releases.